Hello, bonjour, and welcome to your new Alti Wine Exchange video. Today we're continuing our roundup tour of the investment grade wines from Bordeaux, France. This is our 4-part series to give you all of the essential facts and keys to understand where are the best and the most expensive wines from around the Bordeaux region, and more importantly, why some wines are better than others, what are the key differences in style that you may find around the different sub-regions, the differences in age-worthiness, and ultimately their price. So after we looked at the right bank last week with the wines from the Saint-Emilion and Pomerol, you can catch up on this video through this link right here or at the end of the video. Today we are exploring what you need to know about the wines from the left bank, the famous chateaus of the 1855 classification, the Chateau Margaux, the Mouton-Rothschild, the Lafite, and many, many more. Let's go. First, when we talk about the left bank, we talk about two areas mainly that are on the southern side of the Guiraud river. It's the left bank of the river indeed, considering it flows northeasternward towards the Atlantic Ocean. You got the river that flows this way, left bank, right bank. That's essentially what it is. These two areas are the Médoc to the northwest of Bordeaux city and the Graves to the south. Pretty straightforward. One thing we didn't talk about last week is that at some point during geological times there was a movement of plaques, a tectonic movement that made the right bank higher than the left bank, which in turn made that the clay subsoil was covered with gravels and soils on the left bank and it was not on the right bank. That's why in Pomerol and Saint-Emilion you have those clay and limestone soils that we talked about last week, while here on the left bank it's all about gravels and sand mainly. A big difference in terroir despite those being close by around the Bordeaux city. Now this soil difference in turn causes the grape focus from winemakers to be different. They focus on different grapes. It's Merlot dominant on the right bank, as we saw last week again, because it works better on clay and cooler soils. While here on the left bank it's mainly around Cabernet Sauvignon that needs the heat reflection from the warm gravels and the sandy soils to ripen fully and make some great wines. Yet Bordeaux as a region is not nearly as warm as most parts of California, Australia, Chile, Argentina, many parts of the New World that make some fantastic good Cabernet Sauvignons. On the left bank of Bordeaux, Cabernet gets just ripe enough to be good, but it doesn't get cooked or overly rich. This is precisely what makes the unique finesse of the wines from the left bank and what has made the great chateaus of Médoc and the Graves so special through history, what's made their success in winemaking all along the history. This rare combination of having an exceptional grape Cabernet Sauvignon that's now become, by the way, the most successful red grape for making wine in the world. Just as a reminder, this combination of a great grape with the perfect soil and the perfect terroir for growing it brought the wineries of the left bank to make some of the finest wines on earth as soon as the 19th century. Because Bordeaux is by the ocean, obviously the wines were exported extensively to the US and the UK all along the 19th century. So their reputation expanded greatly, so much so that when France hosted the Exposition Universelle, the Universal Exposition held in Paris in 1855, an international event, the then ruler of France, Napoleon III, ordered the best chateaus of the left bank to be ranked so he could highlight the very best wines France could make at the time to the rest of the world. So the trade of Bordeaux was commissioned and they based their ranking not on a blind tasting and tasting the wines blind to find the best wines and to find out their quality, but on wine market prices and on the reputation of each chateau. So they identified 61 chateaus that were considered the best wines and they created 5 grade scales to fit all of those chateaus into creating the 1855 classification that we still know today. So they found 5 Premier Crus, the first growth, the best ones, 14 Deuxième Crus, second growth, 14 third growth as well, 10 fourth growth and 18 fifth growth. That's how the 1855 classification came about and what still rules a large part of the wine trade for fine wine in Bordeaux some 165 years later. There's only been one major change to the classification ever since, which is when Chateau Mouton-Rothschild was elevated to the coveted rank of Premier Grand Cru Classé, top rank, highest ranking level straight in 1973. possibly as a favor from the newly elected French President Georges Pompidou and his then Prime Minister Jacques Chirac, to the favor to the Rothschilds. If we look at the Médoc, there is hardly no exceptions. All of the finest collectible and investment grade wines are still listed on the 1855 classification. It's still true to this day. And that's because they've had the best terroirs to make the best wines, and also investors and collectors keeping an eye on them, investing them, allowing them to stay on top of the game. Now, the 5 Premier Crus are unquestionably the most demanded and expensive wines because they are large estates that make consistently extremely profound and age-worthy wines. Those are such famous names as Chateau Haut-Brion in Pessac-Léognan, Chateau Margaux, Chateau Mouton-Rothschild or Chateau Lafite-Rothschild, Pauillac. Now, there is also Chateau d'Yquem, but that's in Sauternes and it makes some sweet wines. We'll cover those in the next week's video, continuing our tour of Bordeaux. Now, those clearly command the highest prices in the area, with in particular Lafite-Rothschild generally quoted as the most expensive wine in Médoc, with a bottle of newly released wine ranging between $600 to $800 a bottle, depending on the quality of the vintage. Yes, there is a variation depending on how good everyone considers a vintage to be. With safe provenance and good storage conditions, those wines' value increases slowly over time as they age. Now, the other 4 levels in the classification are less relevant in terms of ranking. Often lesser growths ranked lower 165 years ago now make better wine than some classified higher in 1855 and sell at higher prices. Some examples include Chateau Palmer in Margaux, which is only a 3rd growth but a more expensive wine than most in fact second growths. The best second growths such as Chateau des Tournelles or Chateau Montrose in Saint-Estèphe often make wine at the same level of quality and just as expensive as some of the first growths. Those have been nicknamed the super seconds. As another example, the 5th growth, that's called Chateau Pontet Canet, has now been charging as much, if not more, than many second growths. It's down to individual quality and reputation of each chateau again today. The 1855 classification could be updated based on market prices today for sure, and it would look quite different from the original 1855 one. But that's another story for another day. This was our quick roundup of the fine and rare wines from the left bank of Bordeaux. Next week we'll continue our tour of the great Bordeaux wines. We'll look into the time-defying and outstanding sweet wines from Sauternes that were also classified in the 1855 classification. Those are absolutely fantastic. See you then, take care in the meantime, and I will see you soon in the wonderful world of fine and rare wine, investment grade wines from around the world. Cheers.